What is going on, Liberty Gang? This is Jamie Kane, the host and founder of Liberty Uninterrupted. I'm sitting down today with my friend of the show, Nick Wildstar. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, you know what I'm saying, considering what's going on in my life right now. But it's a pleasure to be here to speak with you, no doubt.
I appreciate it, brother. I probably should have asked a different question. I appreciate your honesty. Well, before we jump into our conversation, because we have an important conversation today in supporting our friend Nick here, I need to thank our sponsors. So our first sponsor is Coinbase. Guys, if you're into crypto trading at all, I highly recommend Coinbase. If you go to the description, the podcast, or the YouTube description, you can go support the podcast there and open a Coinbase account. They are the premier cryptocurrency trading platform. I use them for all of my crypto trading purchases, so I definitely highly recommend going to see them and supporting the podcast there. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, you also know that I'm a fitness fanatic in the gym every single day, and I only trust my nutrition with First Form Nutrition. So if you guys go to firstform.com/Jamie Kane, you can support the podcast there and get the very best nutrition available on the market. Those are two great ways to support the podcast. And now we'll go ahead and jump into the conversation with my friend, Nick. All right, Nick. So I appreciate you joining us today, especially with everything going on. It has been, it sounds like a roller coaster of a little bit of a ride for you. And so before we jumped into the actual recording of the episode, you kind of told me about what's been going on. And if you want to give a quick, synopsis of where you're at now and kind of where everything started for the audience, and then we'll jump into the details as we move along.
Absolutely. Well, I had some traffic citations in 2018 that I had appeared in court for, and I had them dismissed during those appearances, but I recorded them using my cell phone, which upset the judge, and I was thrown out of the courtroom both times. And this just grew and exploded into this situation to where I'm now on trial, or had just been on trial for 6 counts of contempt of court, and was found guilty by a jury of 12 in Orange County, which is predominantly white, for these criminal charges. So I currently at this time am awaiting sentencing, which is next Friday, March 12th.
Okay. So it's something that we talked about before, was that you were charged essentially twice for the same crime, the contempt in court, that you were arrested for, you were jailed for 12 days and then 8 days, which caused you to miss your son's first Christmas, right?
Yes.
Which is some bullshit, that's probably the most polite way I can say it. And then you were charged again for the same crime that you were jailed for originally. So walk us through that, because you didn't know about the first charge. Is that correct?
Not at all. As I said, this case happened in September of 2018. So a year later, I was traveling on the road with my family from an event in Santa Cruz, and I was pulled over for, speeding or whatever. Really, I was profiled by the police officer. And after speaking with him, he wanted to wanted to get my ID. I gave it to him flippantly, thinking, I'm A-okay. And he came back saying, hey, I have some warrants for your arrest for contempt of court. And those charges were from, like I said, damn near a year ago. So I was confused. I didn't know what had happened, because to my last knowledge, the case had been dismissed. And I was just being asked to pay a civil assessment fee, which was maybe $300. So they were still trying to make me pay money for the crime. So it pretty much just became a financial matter at that point. I didn't think it would become a criminal matter. But I was arrested, taken to jail, spit out about 12 hours later or so, and then was given a promise to appear notice for December of 2019. So when I appeared in court for those, to dispute those contempt of court charges, I wasn't recording openly using my cell phone. I spoke with the judge about the charges. I basically let him know, they shouldn't be there at all, and contested against the charges. And this exchange with the judge led to me being arrested at that point for contempt of court. And I was held in jail for 8 days. And like he said, missed my son's first Christmas. But once I got out of jail, ended up finding out I had now a new charge for contempt of court for that court appearance that I was just arrested for. So now I had not only that one to deal with in criminal court, but the 2 previous contempt of court charges. So I then now had 3 charges, 3 court cases for contempt of court, but they doubled the charge. If you look at the language of the contempt of court, one says pretty much contempt of, and not disobeying or not obeying a court order. And the other one says not obeying a court rule. So they charged me twice essentially for the same quote unquote crime, even though there's no victim.
Sure, but they just use different language, right? So they can get it across in the charge. The language is different in the charge, but they're talking about the same instance. Is that correct?
Exactly. The language is same about the charge, but they again are talking about the same instance, each court case. So each of the court cases, my 3 appearances, I was charged twice. So I had 6 total charges for contempt of court, which I was just recently on trial for in Orange County. This happened President's Day week. And it was my 9th wedding anniversary with my wife. It interrupted that celebration. So I instead was on trial for 4 days. And after the jury had deliberated, after hearing all of the facts, including that, that the 3rd time I was not recording, even though the prosecutor made it seem like the biggest issue with me causing a disruptance in court was me recording. But he completely skimmed over the 3rd case, and I was found unanimously guilty for all 6 charges. So it's an extreme, abuse of authority. And there definitely was some jury tampering because my attorney, during her closing argument, went to produce some information. This law it's called PC 148G. And although it pertains to resisting arrest, it basically says that people of the public have the right to record public officials if they're in a public place. She went to say this during her closing argument. The prosecutor objected, and the judge sustained it. So it was completely omitted, and the jury was instructed to basically ignore that information and to follow the law as the judge tells them it is. So.
And this is one of the biggest things, and I want to talk about your circumstance and apply it to, criminal injustice, as we like to call it, criminal justice in America, because I think this is I hate to use the word example, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about your story, and there's a lot of people that have faced similar circumstances like you, regardless of situation, gender, race, no matter what it may be, and they get screwed over, but they don't have the platform that you have. And so I'm grateful for you being brave enough to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's happening to me. And I can't imagine how many people it's happening to that we will never even know about. But if we can help you, but hopefully the goal is to help others that don't have the voice that we have here today, right? And so first of all, I want to say this whole thing is just it is criminal injustice. The fact that they use the same instance with different language to charge you twice. The fact of the matter that they did not notify you of your charges originally, which this whole thing happened, and the whole contempt of court happened because of you recording a public official in a courthouse is a public place.
Right.
That is a public building, right? And the fact that all of this began because simply you exercised a constitutional right and what is supposed to be a constitutional republic.
Yeah, right.
The whole thing is just baffling to me. What really confuses me is the fact that you went to trial with a jury and they found you unanimously guilty. then again, yeah, I don't know. If I was sitting there, I'm like, in what world does that make any sense? You were simply recording, which is your right to do, and they've now charged you 3 different times, twice for the same
Right.
instance, but the same crime. Like I cannot wrap my head around any of that.
Well, you have to be a statist to understand their line of thinking. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because the one thing about the people that are anti-government, or at least anti-establishment and aware of our rights and freedoms, they don't get involved in jury selection. They don't get involved in the court process. You know, if they did,
It's true.
then we'd probably see a difference in our court system, you know. But the people that they do get involved, they have that mindset where we must respect authority. We must do exactly what they say, even if it's something that we may not agree with. And that's a dangerous state of mind, especially for an American, because we're supposed to be the land of the free thinker. But you're not thinking for yourself. You're being told what to think. And that's by people that you paid with your tax dollars and hired and given a position of authority to now dictate over your life. And people are okay with that. You know, the main issue about what the prosecutor was saying about my case is that I was just extremely disobedient and disrespectful. And it's like, aren't these guys working for me, you know, for us, the taxpayer? Why
your tax dollars pay his salary?
Yeah, exactly. And because I said that, that's disrespectful, you know? So it's sad to me that we're being demanded to be be respectful by the state, but the state does not have to respect us at all. So, and that's the
profound, man.
And that's the perception.
I think it's a profound point.
It's true. I mean, that's the perception by the majority is that when the government tells you not to do something, you don't do it. And in my situation, especially with the third court appearance, because during my trial, the prosecutor said to the jury, well, you can't just jump up and down in a courtroom and, you know, do whatever you want, because that would just be a disturbance. But if the judge told you to jump up and down, that would be a lawful order, because the judge is telling you to do something, and the judge is a authority figure. So if you don't do what the judge now tells you to do, you would be breaking the law. And that's essentially what he was conveying to the jurors and everybody watching out there, is that whenever the government officials say that we need to behave a certain way, even if it's in a fashion to where it's not violent, you know, because that didn't come up, it wasn't profane, you know, nothing I was saying was threatening in any way, shape, or form. But if they just don't like your tone, then they can discipline you because of that. And
yeah, it's not like you weren't like cussing the guy out, right? Like, I mean,
no,
you weren't being, like you said, profane. You weren't calling him names. You weren't swearing at him.
Nope.
You just said, look, my tax dollars pay for your salary. I don't understand how I'm allowed to record you according to, you know, your own law, and you're interpreting the law incorrectly, and that is what was disrespectful, and that is what held you in contempt of court.
Exactly.
Because you dare challenge his supposed authority over you.
Right. And the judge during my trial even made it a point to say that this has nothing to do with constitutional rights. This has everything to do with court rules. Okay. So rules aren't laws, and people have that misinterpretation that that's exactly what it is. But I can have a rule in my house that says when you come in here, you got to remove your shoes. That isn't the law, you know.
Right.
A law is something.
Right. That's a great point, because that's the difference, right? So if I came in your house and said, "Hey, Jamie, please remove your shoes," and I refused, you could kick me out of your house. You couldn't arrest me for that.
Exactly.
You could say, "Hey, I'm going to kick you out. Oh, that's my house, my property, not obeying my rules." But if I came in your house and stole something and walked out with it, that's a crime, right?
Precisely.
That's the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now you've injured somebody with your actions. There was nothing about what I did that injured anyone. And in order for there to be a crime, there must be a victim. In this case, who is the victim other than the judge's ego? And that's sad, because if we have such fragile-minded people in positions to where they feel like I'm being disrespected and I'm going to use the rule of law to discipline you, then we, in a sense, are still living enslaved here in this country. Whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, if you're living under a tyrannical, dictatorial, authoritarian government that is telling you to behave such a way, and if you don't, they will assault you physically. They will extort you. They will do anything in their power to make you bend to their will. That's a slippery slope, and it's happening on such a minute level to where, with a traffic citation, with they're wielding this power. Even with my case, it's considered to be citizen journalism. I'm a political candidate. I expressed that during the videos. I let them know I'm running for. At that time, I was running for Fullerton City Council, and I was letting them know, in my pursuit for office, if I ever get elected, I'll be the one making sure that you're held accountable. This will be proof of that. Mm-hmm. Don't ever think that I'll forget that, And with me running for office, I'm also documenting my campaign, whether it's, me having to deal with a judicial official in court, or me doing a debate or an interview with, CNN or whatever the case may be. I'm going to record it from my own point of view for my audience. And that's exactly what I was doing. And there were some citizen journalists in Fullerton that were arrested for recording protests over the killing of Kelly Thomas. He was a white guy in Fullerton, beat and killed by the Fullerton PD. And some citizen journalists were recording this. The police declared an unlawful assembly, and they were arrested because they didn't disperse. Now, the OCDA, Orange County District Attorney, filed charges against them. And basically, in their trial, they had a hung jury. One juror said, they're not guilty. So the OCDA tried to prosecute them again, and the next judge that was assigned to their case dismissed their case, basically. That same judge.
Who the hell was that guy, dude?
He presided over my case.
What?
Exactly.
No, that's holy shit.
That dude. Same damn judge presided over my trial. You would think with him, dismissing their case, he would do the same thing for mine. What's the difference? Oh, they were two white people.
Yeah. The judge is white, I'm guessing. Is that correct?
Yes. Man, this is Orange County. The black population in Orange County makes up less than 2%. And they have over 6 million people there. I think you said your wife is Huntington Beach or Newport Beach or something. Yeah.
Yeah. She's from Orange County. Yeah.
Ask her. She'll tell you, what does the minority population look like there, and how does the police 100%. Treat them? And what's the mentality in Orange County? That mentality there is, respect authority and the rule of law. And even if they abuse the law, the same people that are told to uphold the law, they can act above the law. And they have time and time again in Orange County. Nobody holds them accountable, period. So it's up to we the people to do so.
I have a couple of points here that I want to walk through with you. And because there was a lot there that you got my mind moving. You got my legs shaking because I'm so I'm just like, I cannot believe that that was the same judge that dismissed that case. He objectively did the right thing in that scenario, right?
Right.
He should have dismissed that case. And then with yours, it's just like there's nothing to even. There's no. Look, I'm not a lawyer. But my dad was a police officer. My dad actually in Virginia growing up. My dad actually left the police force because of in department corruption. Wow. And decided he didn't want to be a part of it. And it'd be funny having you guys, on here together. But he's been a proponent of police reform and criminal justice reform since pretty much forever as a former police officer. And so I'm familiar with that because we talked about it growing up, and I'll have to tell the story later. It's a really good story about how he basically proved this young black kid innocent when the department was trying to prove him guilty, and then he decided to leave after that. So
Wow.
pretty amazing stuff, man. But the first thing I thought of during this whole thing while you were talking was authority corrupts. Here you have a public servant that your tax dollars pay for. This judge is a public servant. I think of police officers. I think of judges. I think of all these people, politicians, freaking Newsom. They, in their oaths, it says that they are there to serve the public. They are objectively public servants, and yet they don't take that as a servitude. They take that as an authoritative status, where that was never meant to be what it is. It was always meant to be a station of servitude, a public servitude. And here they take this perceived authority, and I just talked about this on last Saturday's episode about how perceived authority gives people basically the ego to hurt others. Is essentially what it does. It gives them permission in their minds to disregard the non-aggression principle, which they essentially did here with you, right?
Yes.
So we have authority that corrupts, number one, and then we have rules over law, right? And when you said that, this is what came into my head. Even the laws that we do have in this country, most of them are, number one, unconstitutional, and number two, don't do anything except for hurt innocent people.
Right.
Most laws in this country have nothing to do with hurting people and taking their stuff. That's literally, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if you can see
yes,
that. So I got my shirt right there. That's outside of that. Why do we have crimes that punish people with zero victims? And so it's not even just rules over law. It's that here we have these stupid ass laws. Let's even say that your thing was against the law, that recording was against the law, which it's not. Who did you hurt if it was against the law?
Exactly.
Nobody. And to me, that would be an illegitimate law, an unlawful law.
Right.
And I have that conversation with people all the time because they say, well, just obey the law. Just obey the law and you won't get hurt. You won't get arrested. You won't do this. Well, what happens when the law is unlawful? What happens when the law is wrong?
Exactly.
And it is required of a free society to be civilly disobedient to unjust laws. And that's what you did. And essentially, your crime is pushing back on the authority that is supposed to be your servant.
Precisely. Exactly. Yeah, they really don't like that. And I would leave it there too, right?
I would drop my mic, but it's really expensive.
You hit that on the head, man. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, even with my trial, okay, as much as they wanted to make it about me recording in court and how that was a abuse of them saying, don't do what we tell you, or don't not do what we tell you to. Pretty much, they did it.
Right? Don't be disobedient, right?
Yeah, they had the audacity to broadcast the trial live on YouTube. So it's okay for them to put the video on YouTube. It's not okay when I put the video on YouTube. So it's to do as I say, not as I do.
So you recorded the original ones. You weren't recording in trial with the jury, but they recorded in trial with the jury.
Yes. Well, the reason now is because of the coronavirus. So now because of COVID and the pandemic and these lockdowns, all trials, all court cases in California is broadcast live online because it's a constitutional right. We have the right to a speedy and public trial. So you said the courthouse is a public place. It's no more or no less public of a place than a library or a post office or city hall even. So you can go in there as a person of the public and you can watch proceedings. You can watch everything that happens in that public place. So that's what we used to do before this whole pandemic stuff. Now, because people aren't allowed into the courtrooms, they're broadcasting it live online for everybody to watch. We just had a situation where there was a doctor, okay, who was doing surgery or something like that. He's a plastic surgery. He's doing surgery on a Zoom in court. And this was now like a news headline because, of the craziness involved in the situation. This guy's doing the surgery while doing a Zoom in a court hearing. And it's crazy because that's exactly what happened with me, and they recorded that situation with this guy, put it out there for all the world to see, and that's exactly what I did essentially. Now they're doing it unexcusably.
What always baffles me is that the common American, and when I say the common American, what I mean is not that we're less than politicians, because we're greater than politicians, to be honest with you, but like just the people that aren't in the status agenda, or in public quote unquote office, right? What baffles me is that most people don't think that whatever is illegal for me, quote unquote illegal, right, should be illegal for the state.
Exactly.
They treat the state as a separate, greater entity, as opposed to believing that the state should be treated as an individual. Now, me, I'm a volunteer, so I believe in the complete abolition of the state, right? The complete destruction of the state. But like, I believe that we need to get to that point, right? I think there's stepping stones that we need to take. With that being said, we do live in a quote unquote constitutional republic, right? And we're supposed to measure the state like we measure individuals.
Right.
And so you were essentially charged and put on trial for the same thing the state did. The only difference was that you did it in defiance of the state.
Pretty much.
According to what defiance is to them.
Right.
And they can do it because, well, they're the state. We can do what we want.
Precisely. That's the biggest danger about our government right now. And people aren't taking that into consideration, because what that does, and I've been saying this recently, is it opens the door to vigilantism, because if you don't have a system that is going to exhibit justice and, be that model for society, people are going to take it into their own hands and do it themselves. And that's what we saw happening during the Black Lives Matter protests. That's what we saw as a result from the Capitol 6 riot. And I believe if the state does continue to disrupt and destroy the public trust it has in it, it will be completely disintegrated, and then we'll have complete chaos at that point. How can you reestablish that trust and, be trustworthy? Is you got to uphold the law. You got to stand true to those same principles and values that you're promoting to others. And if it's going to be justice and freedom and liberty for all, then you got to stand on that. They definitely are not being examples of that.
Yeah. I think I'd be pumped if the state just disappeared, but maybe that's just me. But what I find interesting about that is he talked about, the BLM riots and the Capitol riots together, not separate, which most people would never do that. So I appreciate you doing that, because while I disagree with facets of both of them, I also agree with facets of both of them, right?
Exactly.
So I think
Same
it's interesting
here.
that you combine those two, because most people look at, in the mainstream, look at the BLM riots as completely righteous and nothing was wrong with them, and then look at the Capitol Hill riots as completely insane and destructive.
Right.
There was good and bad in both, right? And I want to point that out, because most people wouldn't do that, and I appreciate that. But two is that we talk about authority. We talk about how if people lose faith in the state, which they should lose faith in the state, but you shouldn't have faith in the state. You should have faith in yourself to be able to do things. Now, if we're supposed to live in a constitutional republic, we should be able not to have faith in the state, but have a level of
acceptance.
Trust. I don't think you can't trust the state, right? Like, you should know that they should operate within the parameters of the Constitution.
Right.
Right. You should, an expectance. That's what where I was like. You should be expecting for them to operate within the Constitution, right? And I agree with you. I think it needs to be said that the moment that the state loses control will be the moment that people realize it, and that meaning Americans in general realize the state is incapable of making any meaningful change.
Exactly.
Absolutely incapable. The only thing in my mind, if you're going to have a state, right? Like I think the perfect society, you don't have one. But if you're going to have one, the only thing they do is making sure that people don't hurt each other, they don't just steal or destroy each other's property, and that they protect contracts. And that's pretty much it. That's what I believe a state is good for. Because outside of that, the state isn't good. Everyone wants the state to regulate regulate morality. They can't do that.
Exactly.
Everybody wants the state to fix problems. Oh, the government should do this. The government should do that. The government is good at nothing, and you see it in your circumstance where you literally do the same thing the state does, and somehow because they're the state, it makes it legitimate and yours illegitimate and a crime.
Right.
The hypocrisy is astounding.
Exactly. Well, the three that you pointed out, they're not even good at that. They're not good at protecting us.
No.
And we shouldn't be reliant upon them to do that either. I mean, the first line of defense is you. So when it comes to you,
1,000%.
when it comes to you protecting your lives, when you call 911, they're going to be responding to your call. But you have to be the first defender. If someone breaks into your home, you can't rely on police to come and stop that thief from, stealing out of your home or possibly even harming you. It's up to you to do that. Even with this whole coronavirus thing, I was talking about this, and I know it's probably going to upset a lot of people out there, but the government does not have the right to force you to stay in your own home. You risk you face the risk of any possibility of what happens to you whenever you leave your home. Now, that was the case before the lockdowns. That'll be the case after the lockdowns. You could step outside of your house and get hit by a car, God forbid, but
No.
had nothing to do with coronavirus, and the government didn't stop
that. You could trip in your house and break your neck, man. You could slip on water out of the shower and break your neck in the bathtub.
Yeah,
I mean, you ain't safe. Yeah,
and that may happen now
since they're
since they're telling people to wear masks in their homes.
Yeah. I find that interesting because we use. I always say that I think it's becoming a joke now on the podcast. I hate using COVID as an example because I'm so sick of talking about it, but it's so relevant. It's like the most relevant example we can use. You look at Abbott, down in Texas, announcing we're removing the mask mandates and removing all lockdowns and restrictions, and everybody's celebrating. Oh, what a champion of freedom! Oh, like this guy really cares about liberty, dude. He shut down shit in the first place.
Exactly.
I don't understand why we're celebrating a dude that basically told you can't live your life, you can't run your business, and all this. Our great and grand master is now giving us permission to live our lives again.
Exactly.
Oh, how grateful I should be.
And that's how you
so ass backwards, dude.
That's how we're being mentally conditioned to embrace our leaders as gods or superiors, when really they're supposed to be equals, if not subordinates. Like you said, they're public servants. You work for us. If you go and hire a butler, or a maid or something, they work for you. So they're going to do what you tell them to. If you say, hey, I need you to go in the bathroom and clean up the toilet, they have to go clean that toilet or else they're not going to get paid. These guys, they're refusing to do what we tell them to, and they're still getting paid. Why are we allowing that system to continue? If anything, they're telling us to go in the bathroom and clean the toilet when that's their job. So it's ass backwards to how we've kind of flip the script here, and instead of us looking at ourselves as being sovereign beings where we are our own authority, there is no higher authority over us other than God, if we believe in such a thing, but another person, another man, another human being does not have authority over you, and it's antithetical to the principles and values of this country if we're going to continue to perpetuate that in any way, shape, or form, seeing its history, whether it be breaking away from the chains of slavery from England or the chains of slavery from white supremacy. We want to break chains here instead of embrace them. And right now we have a populace that is embracing their chains and, applauding those that are loosening them a bit. It's like Game of Thrones.
You gave you 5 more feet. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. And instead of having one king, or queen ruling over us, we now have hundreds, and we've given them other titles, senators and congressmen and, mayors and governors or officer, or judge. These are not our rulers. We, the people, are the ruler. We are the majority. The government gets its ability to govern from the people, from we, the people. And those laws.
From the consent of the governed.
Exactly. Right? From the consent of the governed. And the laws that they create come from us. If we disagree with the law, we don't have to obey the law. If anything, the Supreme Court has said time and time again, if there's any law out there that contradicts or conflicts with our constitutional rights, we can ignore them with impunity, but time and time again, we have individuals that abuse their power and continue to, what is it? Just, I don't know. They just are acting outside of characteristics that we would think would be model citizens for that role. Whether it's a police officer or a politician, they are doing more harm than good at this point. So I'm with you. I'm very supportive of disbanding the system in every way, shape, or form, minimizing it as much as possible, getting it back to an administrative role where it focuses more so on, internal affairs. Governors shouldn't be governing over people's lives. Governors should be governing over state officials and state affairs, So if I get elected, that's what I'll be doing, focusing on making sure that state officials are held accountable and everything is on the up and up as far as our economy and everything else.
Right. I appreciate that, man. You made a lot of profound points, and the thing I want to say is kind of going back. You said we don't live in a government or a civilization by and for the people anymore. It's what we live in is an oligarchy, right? We are a mass population ruled by an elite few,
right?
That we elect. The crazy thing is we elect them. We elect our own masters,
right?
We elect our own rulers, and that's why I vow to never vote in another national or state election ever again, because I'm sick and tired of voting for masters over me that shouldn't have any control over me. I still participate in local stuff because I feel like that. I just believe in localism. I believe that you should be focused more on the local affairs by far more than your state and your especially national. That's just my personal opinion. People can disagree with me on that. Mm-hmm. I think if they're going to vote for people in California, I think if they're going to vote in California, they should vote for you 1,000%. I would. I made that decision for myself because I am just like you went through it, man. Like this is all about the consent of the governed. This is about the fact of the matter is that when we, because of this constitutional republic that we are supposedly living in, we're supposed to live in our founding documents, it says consent. I believe it's in the Declaration of Independence. It says consent to the governed, and meaning that if you don't consent, most people don't understand that. It's okay, consent of the governed, right? Or governed of the consent. No, other way around. Anyways, people don't understand that also implies the opposite. That if you do not consent, that means you cannot be governed.
Exactly.
Right? That's what that means. Now, there is an eternal principle. I believe in the non-aggression principle. I believe in God. I believe that I'm a sovereign being and there's nothing higher than me outside of God, in my personal opinion. Amen. And I'm a Christian, all that good stuff. So that includes Jesus Christ and all that stuff. But my point being with that is this, that on this earth, nobody can rule over me unless I consent to that ruler. which I don't consent. I don't consent to any ruler. I don't. And people don't realize too, when you were talking about unjust laws and people in the Supreme Court saying if there was an unconstitutional law passed that you can go ahead and ignore it. Like this two-way stuff that's coming down from Biden talking about banning all quote unquote assault rifles, which whatever the hell that means, right?
Right.
My thing, people would talk about wanting to hide their weapons and wanting to, you lose all your guns in a boating accident, like everyone's seen that meme.
Yeah.
My thing is the opposite. I'm not hiding shit.
Exactly.
I'm not hiding my guns. I'm not saying I don't own them. I have guns. I have lots of guns. I have lots of ammo. I'm not hiding shit from anybody because it's my constitutional right to have those things. And I'm sick and tired of feeling that we have to live in fear because they pass a law that has no authority over me.
Right.
It is just perceived authority. And I want to wrap that all into what you're talking about today with your stuff going on, is that all this happened because these people thought they had perceived authority over you, which they don't. They do not have authority over you. It's just perception of authority over you. And yet your feet are being held to the fire because of this lack of wherewithal, knowing that they're not your rulers, that you were their ruler if they are in this system, if you were in this system.
Well, again, we're under a false misconception that we get our rights from the government, that they tell us what we can and cannot do. Are you kidding me? I mean, that could be the least thing of what the government's role is supposed to be. You have all sorts of rights and freedoms and liberties that is not codified by our government. And that's the problem, is we've gotten so dependent on them telling us what we can and cannot do that we've forgotten how to think for ourselves. And of course, when it comes to the constitutional rights that the government has sworn to protect, the Ninth Amendment stands out the most, which basically says that, you have all sorts of rights and unenumerated rights that are not here. And they won't ever be. And because of that, this document is incomplete. All of these sworn officials to uphold the Constitution, they're violating that oath. And we need to be holding them accountable. We do need to be holding their feet to the fire. But how are we going to do it if we're afraid to do so? You got to be brave. You got to be courageous. You got to dig deep and do what it takes to fight for your freedom, because that's what's at stake here. And we're doing our best to shift things politically and have that revolution peacefully through our political system. So don't feel dissuaded to not vote. If anything, if you see the problem, vote for the liberators. Vote for the people like me that wants to dismantle the system, that wants to focus that rule of law away from over we the people and onto the law system and the government body, because that's where it belongs. But if we have people running away from the system, then that gives them more ways to where they feel like they can run rampant. And the people that do support it are going to grow. And we're going to be the minority at a point, the freedom fighters. The people that love liberty. I think
we're already a minority.
Yeah, and that's
you see that by the mask mandates. I mean, they said 90% of Americans wearing masks.
Yeah,
I mean that's not a crazy example. Like, oh, you're just saying, but that shows you that 90% of people were unquestionably obedient.
Exactly, and that's why
the liberty movement is the minority.
Yes, indeed, and that's why we do need to be the ones, kind of like, I guess, the driving force of bringing back the way things are supposed to be in this country, because we've yet to see that. We've, especially our generation or any other one for the past few, centuries even. It's just we're continue to see oppression in this country in one way, shape, or form, and where now it's become like a global type of a effort. And with it happening with me right now in the state of California, they're emptying prisons and jails of murderers and killers and rapists, pedophiles, all sorts of, violent criminals, but yet trying to put someone such as myself, who is a father, who is a husband, who is a contributing member to society, you know, out there doing their best to pave the way for others, is being made an example of. So it's draconian in its, existence, and saying that we're going to make an example of this guy. And if I were to be jailed, whether it be a year, a month, or a week or a day, they'd be making a political prisoner out of me, which is why I'm asking everybody out there that, finds out about my situation, sees it as being an egregious abuse of authority and, a disrespect to our law system, to join me in protesting against my sentencing. Come out there to the courthouse, Santa Ana Courthouse, Friday, March 12th. Asking everybody to be there at 8 a.m. since my hearing is at 9. So 8 a.m. Friday, March 12th. Be there. If you can't be there physically, please just write a letter or call the judge or the Orange County District Attorney. Put as much pressure on them as possible to reduce my sentencing or vacate it altogether. The judge can overrule.
How about dismiss that shit? Man?
Exactly.
How about that? And the judge dismissed himself from being a judge because obviously he's not qualified or even capable of doing so.
Exactly.
I'll be calling for sure. I can't be there physically, but I will be calling for sure, my friend.
Well, for what I've been told by the one that created this write-in campaign, Angela McCardle of the Los Angeles Libertarian Party, she says, please be nice, remember that if you be mean towards these people, they may react in the wrong way. We've already seen what that happened with me and my response, even though I'm in court being the nice guy,
so
smiling.
I'll have to change my tone a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I'm fiery, man. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
I'm Italian on my mom's side, full-blooded Italian on that side. And my dad is a direct descendant of William Wallace. So I got a lot of stuff going on, man. And it takes me quite a bit of power to subdue that fire. But I'll do
that warrior
spirit,
you,
man.
Well, that warrior spirit is definitely needed now more than ever. It's just a matter of
I got you, man.
directing the energy, So
I won't let you down, man.
But yeah,
I do want to say this, that I'm glad that you brought up the Ninth Amendment, because I've had that conversation before with people saying, "Oh, we have our rights," and that's. I just had this conversation with a guy over Instagram, of all places, of course. It's pretty much the only place I have conversations now, because that's where people want to, argue at. And I just try to have conversations as opposed to arguing with people. But I had this conversation about how the government is the, they were arguing to me that the government is the arbitrator of rights, which is just completely asinine and incorrect. The government does not give rights, and the government cannot take rights.
Exactly.
The point of the Bill of Rights is and that's the thing, like, even as a volunteerist, I appreciate and respect the Constitution, especially the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, especially because it was the first time in human history that a government tried, a people in forming government tried to acknowledge the rights of the people and realize that the government was supposed to serve the people and not the other way around. So I still respect it 1,000%. I have a copy of the Constitution hanging up in my office right now.
All right.
With all that being said, I think it's important to note that the Ninth Amendment is probably my favorite amendment, because the Bill of Rights is not a complete document. Exactly. It is not a completely what's the word I'm looking for? All-encompassing document.
Right.
Like, I use the example with this person that I was talking to, saying, "Do you believe in the right of movement, the freedom of movement, that you have the right to go wherever you please, as long as you're not hurting people or taking their property?" And they said, "Well, yeah, of course. Like, I can move." So I said, because the freedom of movement is not expressly outlined in the Bill of Rights, now you don't have that right. Is that what you're telling me? Right. And of course, he didn't answer that. He just
of course.
And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because people don't understand that. People don't. Just because it's not in the Bill of Rights, just because it's not in the Constitution, whatever it may be, like you recording. If, like I said, if that was nowhere written that you could do that, and I still believe it's your right to be known in public what is going on in a criminal trial. So
Well, the
I'm
First
glad
Amendment,
that you brought that up. I really am.
well, the First Amendment says freedom of, not only freedom of speech. People think, the First Amendment, when it comes to freedom of speech, that
Yeah.
that's all
It's
it
freedom
is.
of assembly, freedom of the press, right? Like that. There's a
Exactly.
lot included.
Freedom
in
of religion, and freedom to protest.
Exactly.
You got all of those rights under the First Amendment. And when they said freedom of press back in 1776, when they first written it, it was done with a damn felt tip pen. So fast forward to now, freedom of press is citizen journalism, bloggers, it's TikTokers and influencers on social media. It's so vast, it's multimedia corporations, it's independent journalists, it's so many things. So freedom of press is anything and everything that we know press as it to be in this modern age. And we know that whenever somebody videotapes something of public, with their cell phone and put it online, then that's a way for us to share information with each other. That's exactly what I was doing.
That's the only way you get the truth nowadays. It's the only way. If you didn't record that, they could. I mean, well, the only quote unquote news or press I listen to are guys like Tim Pool. I'm not sure if you follow Tim Pool. The dude is extremely intelligent. Just like independent journalists, guys like that, like on YouTube that are just objective about the facts. And if you hadn't have done that, what could they have said about you in that courtroom?
Right.
That you went on, that you were crazy, that you were cussing, swearing, that you pushed deputy. They could have said anything they wanted to, but because you have the right, you have the freedom of press, not just CNN, not just MSNBC, but because you have the freedom of press, you were able to do that, and yet they still are attacking you for that.
Exactly.
Or exercising your constitutional right.
Right. Well, this third court case that I was telling you about, the prosecutor actually introduced evidence, which was an audio recording, a clip of an audio recording provided by one of the arresting officers. And it's just like a 2-minute clip, and it's the tail end of everything I said to the judge right before they, took me into custody. So
right.
This was presented in court during my trial. Why was the actual court record from that day not presented as evidence? If we are supposed to be rest assured that they are recording everything, that everything is on the record, where's the official court record? It wasn't produced. They only produced this little snippet of a record for audio recording from an officer. So that should be a red flag, because that lets you know, number one, they're not actually keeping record like they claim to be. And number two, it's because it's not on the record, things are going on, secret happenings. And this is our judicial system. If everything that they're doing isn't being recorded to where we, the people, know exactly what's going on, they can create all sorts of laws. They can take away all sorts of constitutionally protected laws. They could damage everything about the fabric of our law system to where we don't even recognize it anymore. The only way to do it, only way to hold them accountable is to have it be open to the public, which is why the Sixth Amendment is there, so you can have the right to a fair and public trial. And our court proceedings should be public, and we definitely should be demanding that we know what's going on behind those closed doors.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. I just reached over my bookshelf and grabbed this. It's 3 Felonies a Day by, his name is Harvey Silverglate. It is the entire book. It's a big book, man. The entire book is based on how the average American commits 3 felonies a day without ever knowing it.
Right.
Think about that. 3 felonies a day without ever knowing it. Victimless crimes. Felonies, federal charges.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to bring it over, people, get this book. It's a phenomenal read. It goes into what you're talking about, because think about all the things they could just charge you for, just for doing what you did, which is everything that your constitutional rights in this country safeguard.
Exactly.
Every single bit of it. And we know that police officers in this country. I'm not saying I don't ever speak in absolutes because not every cop in this country is bad. Like I said, my dad was a cop. I have very good family members that are still police officers that are good people. I just believe the system needs an overhaul, right? With that being said, there are police officers that fabricate evidence, that change evidence. There are court officials, like you were talking about here, that do hide evidence, that do hide recordings, or they even recording the full transcript of what's going on in that room. Right. These are the questions that we need to be asking, and I implore the audience, if you're ever in a situation like Nick was, you ask for these. It is your right to ask for the transcript. It is your right to record. It is your right to know that this is a public proceeding, that people should know that this is happening, and they should know what's being said in that courtroom, and you're allowed to have witnesses. Right. And that's all you were trying to do, was bring in the public to your what's it called, court hearing or whatever it may be. You were just trying to bring in the public, which is your right to do it. And yet it wasn't okay until they did it. Yeah. And I'm kind of beating a dead horse now, but I'm just completely baffled that this is happening to you. To me, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I think I got some common sense about me. These guys, it's like Sloth from the Goonies is running this courtroom.
That's exactly what's happening. It's a kangaroo court, man. It is a circus. And they're making a joke of our entire law system. So the one thing about the joke that doesn't make it funny is people's lives are actually at stake and are being harmed because of it. So that's why we definitely need to start taking action. And that's why I'm asking everybody to help me take action with this situation in particular. What you just brought up about, corruption, Orange County is notorious for it. I mean, they just got discovered for having, a police officer that was falsifying court records, statements. What if the system we know already is falling apart and is proven to be negligent in its procedures, then how do we have a system of checks and balances? It's only until we step up to the plate to say, we want to know the truth. You need to be transparent about it. And if you don't provide us that information, then we're going to remove you from power, whether it be, by electing you out of office or physically removing you if need be. These guys are hiding behind people with guns, which are police officers, law enforcement officers, to basically threaten us into being their subjects. So it's up to us to fight back, which is why I'm again asking everybody to help me in doing so. We're going to do it peacefully. We're going to do it civilly. And we're going to do it respectfully. So please join me in the protest Friday, March 12th, 8 a.m., Santa Ana Courthouse. If you can't be there, call the judge. If you can't do that or don't want to, just share my story, share any of my videos, share anything about this situation that's happening with me, and use the hashtag #FreeWildstar to help, again, turn this situation, this moment, into a movement for actual true criminal justice reform and a defense of our freedom and liberties.
Amen. Absolutely. Where can people find you on socials?
Well, head over to my website, governorwildstar.com, and hit the tab Free Wildstar. If you hit that, it'll take you to a page where it breaks down all information about what's going on. But on my website is my social media icons: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find me at Governor Wildstar, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And as I said, I am running for governor of California. I'm hoping to continue my campaign in the event that I'm not arrested and held in jail past the election day. But I am continuing my campaign for California governor. So if you'd like to get involved and support that effort as well, head on over to wildstar2022.com. And of course, donations are needed, not only with the campaign, but with the fight for freedom as well, because I am going to appeal this and take it to the Supreme Court if need be. I'll fight it as far as I need to go, but that's going to cost a pretty penny, especially with legal representation. So I do have a GoFundMe as well on the Free Wildstar page on my website, or you can go to gofundme.com/Free Wildstar. And please make a contribution or share with others.
Okay. I just found that page you were talking about. I'm going to include it on the podcast description and the YouTube description.
Excellent.
So you guys will be able to find it there. Yeah, absolutely. The Free Wildstar page. And I'll also include the GoFundMe page as well. So
thank you.
I got your back, brother. I'm here for you, man. I appreciate you coming on the show, talking about your story. Like I said, you are a voice that needs to be heard, because for every one of you, there's 10 others that will never hear their story.
Exactly.
And so I appreciate you standing up, not only for yourself, but for all Americans in the same position. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to Liberty Uninterrupted. Once again, thanking our guest today, Nickolas Wildstar. Once again, all of his links are going to be in the podcast description and YouTube description. Make sure to check those out. Go support him. Go donate to the GoFundMe. Help him out with those legal resources. And guys, as always, we need to remember most of all that we, the people, run this.
Exactly.
Boom. That was awesome, dude. That was super good.